This is Retirement Roadmap Radio with Mark Fricks of Master Plan Retirement Consultants. Listen in as we address your retirement concerns and provide insight to help put you on the path to achieving your retirement goals. And now, Retirement Roadmap Radio.
Hey folks, welcome back to Retirement Roadmap with Master Plan Retirement Consultants. My name is Evan Fricks, and with me as always, retirement planner Mark Fricks. Lately, we've been discussing taxes in retirement and strategies to create a tax-efficient retirement plan to carry you over the course of your retirement. Once you have a plan in place, another consideration is what tax liabilities am I passing to my heirs? Unfortunately, like most estate and legacy planning, it often takes a bad experience to prompt a person to get their own affairs in order. We've seen that a few times, right, Mark?
Yeah, people come to us for help, but it's after the cow's out of the barn. Is that kind of how you put it? And so you can't reverse hardly any of this kind of stuff. So I've got one estate planning story I used to tell when I taught a lot of estate planning, and it actually occurred at a former firm, and it's just everything that could go wrong went wrong. And so it's so important, and it's so complicated, and even we sometimes have to go back and research how something's working or doesn't work because things change. We've had two major changes in the last 4 years on taxes, and when it comes to inheritance and things of that nature. So it's absolutely imperative you get help.
Yep. So we're going to look at some common points that people tend to get stuck on, or maybe even overlook, or rather don't even know exist. A lot of them have to do with finances and understanding how certain rules work and don't work. Specifically, starting out, when you inherit an IRA, there are rules for nearly every situation. Spousal rules, inheriting an IRA is one thing, but then if you're a child of the deceased or a relative or whatever that beneficiary that's non-spouse, there's different rules on all of those as well.
And rules about if they've already started RMDs, required minimum distributions, or haven't started them yet. There's rules, special circumstances where you don't have to follow the exact rules. So you can kind of get around some of the rules depending on disability or terminal and things like that. So it is complicated, and again, it changed. Before January 1st of 2020. I'm sorry.
That's
is that right? 2020. Okay. What year is it now? 20. Okay.
When does this air?
That's right. So different set of rules. So anybody that passed away before, well, not anybody, but most folks that passed away before then, it was a different rule. We had the stretch IRA. And so the stretch IRA was wonderful for planning because you could actually, let's say, my daughter inherited my IRA. She would only have to take out a minimum amount for her entire life,
right,
pass it to her children, and you could go multiple generations with that, which also spreads out the tax burden. But guess what? The government wants their money. So the new rule, starting January 1st of 2020, is that it has to come out of that IRA in most circumstances within 10 years. So then you get into this point. Okay, so do you take it out all in the first year and pay taxes on that lump sum? Do you let it grow for 10 years and take out?
Let me answer that question before you move on.
Okay.
No.
Well, in most cases, no, right? Do you wait till 10 years and take it all out then when it's worth twice as much and pay more taxes? And by the way, taxes will probably be higher then, right? Do you take it out over the course of 10 years? And so I had an interesting conversation with someone yesterday, one of our money managers, and I think I may run the numbers because we were talking and saying, which is worse, letting it continue to grow and taking money out every year equally, right, and paying the tax every year, or waiting the whole 10 years because it's growing tax deferred. Whereas if you take it out every year and you invest it, it's taxable. So it's not really a black and white answer. It's number one, what are the needs maybe of the person that inherited? But also, I'd love to look at those numbers.
Well, and what are you reinvesting it into? Because there are also certain...
If you put it in your mattress, you don't have to worry about it.
Or if you put it into a life insurance policy.
Or an annuity that tax defers it. So that's another planning option as well. If you're still working, you can certainly put it into a Roth. If you're the child and you turn around and put it into a Roth if you have earned income, but you can't put it into a Roth unless it's that scenario. And then it's only $7,500. So there are a lot of things you can do, but I would love to run those numbers when I have a free moment, maybe next year, and see the comparison of that. But there's so many variables too, because think about this, how much is it growing? Like you said, what is it in? Is it just a brokerage account? And what's the tax rate?
Right.
In 3 years, 5 years, 8 years, 10 years. So there's a lot of things you have to look at. So, but our main point of today's episode is the fact that you've got to follow the rules. And if you mess up, then it can cost you big time.
Yeah, and today we're going to be focusing more on the tax liability that you may be passing on to your heirs. But that's just one small portion of estate and legacy planning. We have this conversation frequently. We've experienced it in our own family. We have employees who have experienced it, clients who have experienced it, but just the personalities interacting with estate and legacy planning, even getting to that point, can be very difficult.
Yeah, it's just a whole dynamic, and you get into which is why we like to have family meetings, right? You brought it up in a meeting yesterday with a client that we'd love for your son to come in and meet us, and we will divulge the information you want us to divulge. We certainly don't want to, make the mistake of saying more than we need to, but still to be able to meet us and understand that step one, financially, if your father passes away, is to get in touch with us and let's begin laying out a plan, which we already have kind of a plan in place, but two, based on your needs and what your father's desires were, into making sure this transition is smooth, not only tax-wise, but also, again, emotionally, and what the son needs at that point. Is he married? Is he not married? Things of that nature. So you're right, it's a huge dynamic.
So as far as legacy tax planning, what are some steps that one can do for their own estate to ensure prior to their passing that their tax burden can be minimized?
Well, I think first of all, it's important to probably, in most cases, this is not a recommendation, but we really prefer using trust because a trust can control your estate and your assets. I think in Georgia for 130 years. Now, I'm not saying you do that, but I'm saying, as an example, let's say that, so I pass away, I have a trust, and the instructions are that money be held in trust and paid out over time. So that can certainly reduce a tax burden. Let's say, my sole beneficiary is my daughter, and if she just inherits my IRA all at once, and she's married, okay, suddenly she's got $1 million, and then her husband walks up to her and says, I want a divorce. Well, half that money is up for grabs, or a lawsuit or anything like that. And so one thing a trust can do is spread out that IRA and force it to be spread out over 10 years, as well as the other assets too. Also, a trust can, when it comes to death taxes, which I think we may touch on more later, but that exemption's changing, and I think it may change even more. So less and less of our money is going to be exempt from death taxes. And so, you pay coming in, you pay going out, right? And so a trust can actually capture the full exemption, whereas what we call an I love you will, you lose one of your exemptions. You've cut your exemption in half. And so without getting too deep in the weeds, what I'm saying is you may end up paying 40 or 50% in death taxes at your passing if you're not careful with that. So the trust can do a good job of not getting rid of taxes, but lowering our tax rate. And then if you want to get into truly avoiding death taxes, you get into an irrevocable trust that can actually take stuff out of your estate when you pass away so that it's not yours technically, and that will again reduce death taxes. Now that's for folks that have pretty sizable estates, but it doesn't take much to have a sizable estate. When you start thinking about your house, maybe a death benefit, of course your assets, and anything that belongs to you is part of it, whether it's a tractor or RV or whatever. So it's, and you figure maybe not passing away for 25 years, 30 years or whatever, then it could certainly be a sizable estate, and you got to start thinking about that as well. So it's a lot of things to go through.
It can be crazy to put yourself in the mindset that getting money might be a liability for you, but there are a lot of ways. One example that you give is if there's a special needs dependent adult child, especially if they happen to be on government benefits somehow, if they have extra income coming in, that could derail their benefits.
Yeah, from an inheritance, all of a sudden, a special needs adult child, like you said, that's on benefits from the government. Those are based on kind of a needs-based. So if you have too much money or too much money coming in per month or whatever, you can lose those. And so suddenly an inheritance of even $50,000 can screw up the benefits. And so then you start talking about special needs trust that can still take care of that special needs adult, but not mess up other benefits they're getting that can be very important to them, especially on the medical side.
Well, and I know this is changing the conversation slightly, but everyone's situation is case by case, and the primary goal is what they need while they're alive. But based on their need, is it worthwhile to look at minimizing deferred accounts while they're alive?
Well, that's a big part of what we do, as you know. We are very, we think it's very important to have a strategy of trying to reduce those IRAs, 401ks, 403bs, even to the point of, and there's a couple of things you can do. Number one is if you retire, in your early 60s, live off the IRAs and delay your Social Security. And let's spin those IRAs down some. You can do Roth conversions. We've had whole shows about those items. You can convert into specially designed life policies that work like a Roth, which will also provide possibly long-term care needs and death benefits. So yeah, we always talk about, especially now that, since taxes are still relatively low, believe it or not, they are, but they are going up unless Congress acts in 20 months. And so we're trying to do a lot right now as well to lower, not only our clients' tax burden in the future in retirement, but their kids and maybe even grandkids.
Yeah. If a adult child, let's say, inherits a Roth IRA, no more taxes are going to be paid on that.
Nope, that comes out tax-free. Right.
But they still have 10 years to empty the account?
Yeah, that's a shame. I wish they could keep it.
That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I'm not sure why the government would force that, because we know why they force it on an IRA. They want the tax money, right? But they're not getting any tax money. But I will tell you, I think I figured out why. When that money comes out of the Roth, what does that adult kid do with it?
Spend it.
Well, probably. Good point.
Is that the wrong answer?
That Ferrari is looking better and better. Hopefully, if the parent did a good job, they reinvest it. So if they're reinvesting it, most likely they're again putting it in something that may generate taxes. Capital gains, interest, dividends are taxable, right? And so maybe that's the government's thinking, let's get it out of that tax protected. We're not going to get taxes as it comes out, but we might get some taxes down the road, the growth.
Folks, I want to take a moment to point you to our website, masterplanretire.com. There you can find a link directly to Mark's calendar and schedule your complimentary consultation, which is actually two different conversations with Mark. One, you kind of discuss your own retirement hopes and dreams, give us some information. The second, we run a series of reports for you to give you a 10,000-foot view of your own retirement, see where you stand today. If you were to turn that retirement on, where are your strengths, where are your areas of opportunities and for growth. Check that out, masterplanretire.com. You can also call us at the office, 770-980-9262. Next topic, estate taxes.
Yep.
Now, this is a tricky one. People don't often think about that. Actually, I would rather we think about that, but it seems like most people consider the ceiling too high to be worried about.
Right. And we touched on this earlier, but we're going to get a little bit more specific now. So the exemption right now, and you have the exact number because it changes a little bit every year, but per person, the exemption is 11 million?
As of 2024, so it went up this year,
okay.
13,610,000.
Okay, so that's per person. So if you're a couple, that's 26 point something million or 27 million. So that's a lot of money. So if you have the proper paperwork, and your will or trust has the right language, you can capture both exemptions. Because what happens is, again, if you go on a legal Zoom or you go to a non-estate planning attorney in many cases, you have an I love you will. Honey, I love you, here's all my stuff. I die, my spouse gets all of my stuff, my exemption is gone. So she's left with a 13 million exemption. And maybe that's enough, but that is dropping down in about 20 months when the 2017 tax cuts expire or sunset, what is the new number?
6.8 million.
Okay, so now it's 6.8 million. If you capture them both, it's still 13 point whatever million. That's a pretty high one if you capture them both. But if you don't, 6.8. Congress is discussing lowering that number even more. I've heard 3 million. And so if you don't capture them both, you're talking about $3 million. That's upper middle class. That's a lot of people that have more than,
But if you add in death benefits and things like that, it's actually pretty attainable.
Maybe just, that's what I'm saying. You've got a $500,000 death benefit, which is part of your estate when you pass away, right? Homes, have gone up tremendously. What somebody might have paid 5 years ago for $300,000 is now $600,000. What's going to be in 20 years, right? So it's going to add up quickly. And we do estate or death tax planning as part of what we do. And so it's something that people lose. Now think about this. If, let's say, a third to half of your estate is in IRA type money, okay? And they want the IRS wants their money pretty quickly. So you may have to take money out of an IRA, as part of the estate to pay the death tax.
Yeah.
So now you're double taxed. So you tax 20, 30, 40% on the IRA money coming out, and you got to take out twice as much in a higher tax bracket. So it's crazy, but it's happened. Let me tell a quick story. Okay, so this has happened to a couple of people. I've researched this, and this is what they've never confessed to it, but this is what many believe happened. In fact, I know it happened. I can't think of the owner in Miami, but here in the Atlanta area, the Atlanta Falcons, of course, is our team, and Rankin Smith was the owner for many, many years. He passed away. His sons inherited it, and maybe his daughter, at least his children inherited it. They ran it for a couple of years, but then according to what many have speculated, again, I don't want to say this is fact because nobody's ever declared it and it's kind of a private issue, but according to many that have kind of been around that situation, the reason they had to sell the team to the new owner, Arthur Blank, was to come up with enough money to pay the estate taxes because they had so much money wrapped up in the football club. And so they had nowhere else to go. I'm sure he had plenty of other money, but if you're worth 50 million, 100 million, and your death tax is 25 to 50 million, probably didn't have that much in the bank, right? Type of thing. So he had a lot invested in the team. So that's happened. I know that's a fact. The old owner in Miami, and I cannot remember his name, but that's what happens. You either have to divest of properties very quickly, maybe take a lesser price. You got to sell the home within a couple of months. I think that has to be paid within 9 months, if I remember correctly. So you got to sell a home quickly. Again, maybe divest the IRA, whatever else you have to come up with to make sure that gets paid.
So estate taxes are a federal tax. Here's another one for you. Some states, thankfully not the state of Georgia, some states also have an inheritance tax. That's Iowa, Kentucky, Maryland, Nebraska, New Jersey, which I have in-laws in New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. That sounds okay, I can avoid that, but we actually knew someone who did live in one of those states.
Her mom was in Pennsylvania.
She moved to another state, which is where she ended up retiring.
I think she moved here to be closer to her daughter,
which
is our client.
Who it is, but
I think that's what it was.
You would know better than I.
Yeah.
And so she moved, all this other stuff, but her original bank account was still on the prior state, Pennsylvania. Yeah.
Same bank here, but because she opened it in Pennsylvania, it was one of the big banks. They determined that her assets were still in Pennsylvania, and they hit her with a, like you said, inheritance tax in Pennsylvania, even though she lived in Georgia.
I didn't look that up. Do you know what the rates are? Or it's probably different in every state.
Yeah, I don't. That's a great question. We should have looked that up, but 1% is too much.
Yeah. 1% is too much. Another consideration. We've talked about this a few times before, but can you discuss step up in basis and how that affects your heirs?
Yeah, so step up in basis.
It's
very
generally
simple.
a great thing.
Yeah.
Mess it up.
Yes, and a lot of people do not knowing that. Okay, so let's say that I own a house. I'm getting older. It's worth $500,000. I paid $200,000 20 years ago. So the profit in it is $300,000. Now, if I sell it and move to another house, I don't owe any tax. But this is my final home, okay? And so I kind of get worried and things like that, and I decide, I'm kind of getting a little bit forgetful. I think I'll put my daughter's name on my deed. In fact, I think I'll just take mine off and put it totally in her name. That way she can control it. She needs to sell it. She's good. Well, what I lost was what's called a step-up in basis. So if I had given that to her in my will or trust, she would not owe any taxes if she sold it. So that $300,000 profit in that house, suddenly the house now has a new profit basis or cost basis of $500,000. She sells it, no tax. But because I gave it to her, okay, or even put her name on it, and we were both joint owners, I lost that step up. So now if she sells it, she owes taxes on $300,000 because it goes back to the original cost basis of her father. So that is a mistake people make every day because they put their kid's name on their checking account. They put their kid's name on their brokerage account, feeling like they have managed to have more control because somebody else has owned it. Don't do it. It could be a big tax hit down the road. There are better ways to do it. It's called financial power of attorney. It's called healthcare directives. It's paperwork that works. Okay, so don't. I call it lazy estate planning. Yeah. That's not the way to do it, and people don't know. That's the problem. They don't realize that. By the way, also, if you put your kid's name or anybody's name on your house, whether you put it at it or whether you give it to them or whatever, technically you owe a gift tax as well. Now, most people don't know that. Most people don't pay it. They kind of get away with it. It's kind of hard to track.
Well, the lifetime exemption is pretty high, but there's an annual.
Yeah, annual. I think
one
at
or the other.
16,000. Yeah. But it's just not the way to do it.
Right. What are some ways to incorporate legacy planning into your retirement planning?
Well, I think it has to be, you have to take a holistic approach. You have to have somebody that can coordinate all this. If you're going over to some investment advisor or broker and you've got an attorney over here and you got a CPA over here that actually may look ahead and plan ahead as opposed to prepare documents or whatever, you're going to miss something, okay? So that's why this comprehensive plan that we call the retirement roadmap, right? We're looking at all those little caveats to make sure that there are no gullies between areas or there's no potholes or whatever, because it really does have to come together. You have to understand every bit of that, or you're going to miss something. Yeah. And so you have to, when we start converting Roths, we have to understand what's the outcome of that in this generation and the next generation. What's the positive? Are there negatives? Whether it's anything we're talking about. So it really does have to be a comprehensive, holistic approach with a fiduciary that has your best interest at heart.
Yeah, and everything we mentioned, especially the attorney side of things or the CPA side of things with the IRAs and inheriting those, speak to a professional before you try to make a decision, because often with the inheriting IRAs, you also have options to choose a lot of times as well on how you want to take it. Make sure you consult a professional. Masterplanretire.com is a resource you can go to if you want to talk to one of us. That's masterplanretire.com. Schedule your complimentary consultation on the website. Again, the phone number is 770-980-9262. Mark, any parting words for our dear audience?
Well, that's a great point. We have our team here also consists of affiliated teammates, I guess, that are attorneys and tax attorneys and CPAs. And so if we don't know the answer, we know where to go. And again, it's that coming together of minds to make sure. And don't think you got to have $100 million. $1 million, $500,000, you can make some of the same mistakes. Yeah. And the less you have, the more you want to keep. Whether it's leaving a legacy or making sure your money lasts a lifetime. So that's our strength, is we come together as a team and make sure that maybe with the Mayo Clinic of financial planning.
Yeah.
Would that be it? Okay.
It might be trademark. Yeah, a big death benefit or any death benefit is a great gift, but preparation is
the number one gift. Yeah. Well, we appreciate you joining us. Again, visit the website, masterplanretire.com, and until we see you, remember, plan well and prosper. Take care.
This was Retirement Roadmap Radio with Mark Fricks of Master Plan Retirement Consultants. To schedule a complimentary consultation, go to masterplanretire.com or call 770-980-9262. Thanks for listening, and remember, Plan well and prosper.
All matters discussed during this show are for informational purposes only. Each individual situation may vary, and the opinions expressed here may not apply to everyone. Materials presented are believed to be from reliable sources, and no representations can be made as to its accuracy. All ideas and information should be discussed in detail with one of our qualified representatives prior to implementation. Advisory services offered through Master Plan Retirement Consultants, a registered investment advisor in the state of Georgia. Mark Fricks and Master Plan Retirement Consultants are not affiliated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency.